News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Today is the 4th anniversary of the infamous bond auction of 27th February 2015. 4 years ago, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, under Governor Arjuna Mahendran, advertised a bond of 1 billion rupees for 30 years. When the auction closed, the governor decided to take up 20 times that value, 20 billion rupees. In the face of opposition from central bank personnel, he decided to reduce that to 10 billion rupees. Perpetual Treasuries Limited ended up with the lion's share of the 10 billion, as part of it was achieved at an extraordinary high rate of 12.05%, with the rate prevailing before this auction was in the region of 9.85%. Significantly, the Bank of Ceylon, also a primary dealer, made a bid for and on behalf of PTL. As public concern grew and the media interest reached new levels, Prime Minister Wickremesinghe decided the matter was worthy of his interest and intervention. On the 17th of March 2015, made a speech in Parliament. The Prime Minister was unambiguous, and he said that he insisted on change of system and blamed it on corruption in the previous administration. He appointed his own committee, called the Pitipana Committee, to investigate the matter, and the former governor was cleared of any wrongdoing. Then Speaker Chamal Rajapaksa invited D.E.W. Gunasekara to be chairman of COPE in order to investigate the bond auction of 27th February 2015. On the day the D.E.W. Gunasekara report was to be tabled in Parliament, fortuitously for those involved in the bond scam, Parliament was dissolved on the 26th of June 2015. With that, the inquiries into the bond scandal came to a halt. A notable feature of the COPE report was that Arjuna Mahendran, under oath, said he had only followed the Prime Minister's instructions. 3 months after parliamentary elections, on the 17th of August 2015, Prime Minister Wickremesinghe appointed Sunil Hanunetti as chairman of COPE to restart investigations on 26th of November 2015. On the 29th and 30th of March 2016, 2 more controversial bond auctions were held. In October 2016, the UNP members of COPE signed off the report, but added footnotes challenging some of the conclusions of the COPE report. On the 27th of January 2017, responding to growing parliamentary and public sentiment, President Sirisena appointed a Presidential Commission of Inquiry to look into the issuance of bonds from February 2015 through to 31st March 2016. Over the 11 months that followed, the nation looked on in disbelief as the scale of the bond scam was revealed during the inquiry. On the 30th December 2017, the Commission of Inquiry delivered the report to the President, who sent it to the Attorney General's Department. Findings on key people in the report were: Number 1. Arjuna Mahendran acted mala fide and had shared sensitive information that had benefited Perpetual Treasuries. Number 2. His son-in-law Arjun Aloysius, part owner of Perpetual Treasuries, was alleged to have used his relationship with Mahendran to obtain inside information and make massive profits at the expense of government institutions. Number 3. Ravi Karunanayake faces allegations of bribery. He was moved out of the post of Finance Minister and was given the Foreign Affairs Ministry. He then resigned in August 2017 following the revelations during the inquiry. Number 4. The Prime Minister, Ranil Wickremesinghe, was found to have been ill-advised by Mahendran and Deputy Governor Samarasiri. 2 key recommendations were made by the Commission of Inquiry. Number 1. A forensic audit of all the trades conducted by Perpetual Treasuries and other primary dealers involved in the bond auctions be carried out. Number 2. To institute legal action against all those accountable. To this effect, a notice has been issued on Arjuna Mahendran. However, efforts to locate Mahendran in Singapore have failed. He continues to be out of the reach of Sri Lanka's law enforcement. Arjun Aloysius and Kasun Palisena were detained at the Colombo remand prison for almost 10 long months and were released this year. Ranil Wickremesinghe remains the Prime Minister of the country despite a constitutional crisis of 51 days. 4 years after the biggest financial crime in Sri Lanka's history, and no one in government has been held accountable or successfully prosecuted.
And a very good morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the News First studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. 4 wasted years and 4 years of wasted days and wasted nights. Unfortunately, today is a sad day in the history of independent Sri Lanka. Remember, we've been independent since 1948. But what have we been independent of is the question that our nation must question ourselves. Some time ago, perhaps 5 years ago, a movement started. They branded themselves the Good Governance or Yapalane movement. 47 different organizations collectively agreed that there was a need and there was a time for change. They took on the almost invincible. They took on the mighty war-winning Mahinda Rajapaksa. And by January 2015, an unlikely hero emerged. Maithripala Sirisena won it, hands down, so clearly that Mahinda Rajapaksa left Temple Trees and presidential bungalow without so much as a murmur in the early hours of that morning. There was hope. There's a lot of hope amongst the people of this country. But lo and behold, not even barely 2 months into the good governance band or the brand of governance, on the 27th of February, precisely 4 years ago, the greatest financial scam ever perpetrated on the Republic of Sri Lanka occurred. It's now known as the Bondgate saga. News First has spent several minutes, hours, days, and programs dedicated to the public cause, to finding out what exactly went on. And yet, 4 years later, we are still waiting for an accountability and responsibility process. And 4 years later, the mastermind, one of them, is abroad. Another,
at large.
One is, as Mr. Dugundasekara says, is at large. And another remains firmly wielding power. This surely must be the greatest cover-up of all times. And internationally too, the central bank bond scam is way above. Nothing quite like this has ever been done before. And on this very sad day for Sri Lanka, for this beautiful island nation, for one of Asia's oldest democracies, today truly is a sad day. It's 4 years of inaction, 4 wasted years. To look into these matters, we have this special program dedicated to the people of Sri Lanka to bring to them what exactly happened 4 years ago. And on that note, Newsline is grateful for those who have appeared on our program and on several other programs on the News First or within the Capital Maharaja's stable of channels available, radio and television. We're grateful to each and every one of them for having played their own role in exposing the greatest scam ever. And on a personal note, I'd like to thank the chairman of our company for having given us the strength and the courage and the freedom to bring to light the greatest scam ever. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the panel today. all brave men here, but we mustn't forget the brave lady. I'll mention her in a moment. But here we go. Starting from the other side there, Mr. Rusiripala Tennakoon, a senior banker, trade unionist, and a very vociferous activist now. And in the middle here, Mr. Dew Gunasekara, former parliamentarian, and to me, best known as the chairman of COPE. And what a wonderful performance that was. And thanks to Mr. Dew Gunasekara, the person who first called for a presidential commission of inquiry. And he's right here with us this morning too. And the other vociferous critique from the left, well, from the JVP, is Mr. Wasantha Samarasinha. Thank you very much to all of you. Very good morning to you on this very sad day. And I noticed, Mr. Rusiripala, that you are wearing the colors of mourning.
Yes.
And actually, in deference to today, I'm also wearing a black tie.
Thank you for remembering the day.
Indeed. Mr. Rusiripala, we'll pay our respects, shall we, to the most senior person on the panel, to Mr. Dew Gunasekara.
Yes.
Mr. Dew Gunasekara, it's 4 years today. In fact, if you want to be precise, it's only 7:15 now. I think this whole thing took place at about 10:40
Yes.
on 4 years ago when they closed the transaction, having given a 20-minute extension.
11:10.
11:10. That's the time. I think at 11:10, do you, Mr. Gunasekara, think that at 11:10, the whole of Sri Lanka should come to a halt and we should call for at least a minute's silence, if not 2 minutes silence, so that the people of this country can remember what on earth happened to them? They elected this Good Governance Brigade. And what happened, Mr. Dew? Why did this happen?
I remember the day, 27th February,
Yeah.
at about 12:30 noon, I received a call from several calls from People's Bank, from Bank of Ceylon, from Central Bank, from National Savings Bank. Different people, probably having received, probably
Yeah.
smelled or sensed this transaction.
Right.
Probably, since I was the chairman of the COPE,
Yes.
probably they wanted to bring it to my notice, probably. So they telephoned and said, such a transaction taking place, something is going on in the central bank, look for it. That's all.
That's
They said,
all.
That's it. So then I had my all contacts in various places. I tried to find out. Then really this scam, about the story about, I mean, they were not quite sure, but they were just coming out with various stories. But anyway, knowing, we were now later, what happened was on the 27th, although we got the information, I personally wanted to wait till the monetary board either discards it or confirms it. Till then, it's not impossible to take action or to bring it to the parliament.
Yes.
Then that's why we waited till March 2nd. On the March 2nd, Susri, you might confirm it.
Yeah.
It's on the March 2nd that the monetary board confirmed that this approved this borrowing. Right?
Yes.
Now immediately the following day, when we were in the opposition, when we went to parliament, I met number of leaders of opposition and number of others, the JVP comrades were there. Then we were discussing and this question was raised on the following day.
Mm-hmm.
And promptly the Prime Minister stood up and said, I also got this information. I have already appointed a committee of 3 lawyers to look into it. Then of course, then Prime Minister was very so fast. It had been acted so promptly. So the matter ended there. And we waited for 3 months. And then suddenly, when we continued to raise this question in Parliament, the Prime Minister said, I got the report. And he tabled the report to the Parliament. And we found in the report that the report has completely exonerated the Governor of Central Bank. There's nothing of that sort has happened. And also, at the same time, they took up the position that we didn't have the authority to do a proper investigation, deep investigation, because since they were a committee of lawyers only,
Yeah.
they didn't have the authority.
Yeah.
With the limited terms of reference.
Limited terms of reference by the Prime Minister.
Indeed.
They recommended in the reports it should be the proper investigation.
Proper
Yes.
investigation.
They did ask for that.
Then at that stage, there's a big howl in the parliament, and then Chamal Rajpaksa was the speaker. Then he asked me, because I was seated there, he asked me, shall we hand this over to the chairman, Cope, to investigate? Then the House agreed. That is how, on the following day itself,
The Cope started.
the Cope started investigating. That is how all this started.
One of the things that
But
you
in the
just said-
meantime,
Yeah.
there's, I can remember the Island paper and Sirasa, MTV, they all flashed the news
Yes,
about something has gone wrong, but we didn't know what it was.
From the 1st of March 2015, News First raised the spectre of something going on.
25th?
On the 1st of March.
That's right.
The
That's right.
bond was issued on the 27th, and on that first Sunday in the evening, we raised this spectre of a conflict.
Something
of
was
interest.
brewing, but we didn't know what
Conflict. We were very clear in our reporting right from day one, and we continue in that vein, which is that there was a conflict of interest, there was a departure from due process, and we were the first to call for the immediate removal of Arjuna Mahendran from his position. We asked at least that he step aside so that a fit and proper inquiry could take place. And as you well know, Mr. Dew, the evidence of the central bank officials in Corp 1 and Corp 2, if you like, when you examine them, you will find that although the meat was there, in Corp 2, they were much freer and more forthcoming in their reporting of the events that took place. And it goes to prove that when you are having a real independent inquiry, you can't have the accused sitting there overseeing that, in effect overseeing that same inquiry, especially when you take into account the Sri Lankan culture of respecting the person above you and so on. It just doesn't work. But you just mentioned something just now. You said the Prime Minister was quick, so quick, to stand up and say, look, I've also had the report, I'm going to appoint I've already appointed a committee.
Yeah.
Mr. Dugunasekara, why is the Prime Minister not so quick in asking his Attorney General to institute legal action against Arjuna Mahendran? Why is it that the Prime Minister hasn't been quick to admit that he got it completely and utterly and wholeheartedly wrong? And why is it that he's still holding on to power? Why? What's the allure of power?
I think first that was the first attempt. I think I for the last 4 years, now I'm convinced more than anyone else that the Prime Minister had been deliberately attempting to disrupt the investigation, dislodge the investigation, conceal the investigation, or
And-
torpedo the investigation,
And yet,
and continues to do it.
and continues to do it. And yet, if we listen to the words of the then governor, the now at large fugitive Arjuna Mahendran, if we listen to his words spoken to the director of news at the time, Shamir Russell-Dean, over the telephone, and a recording was made. Let's listen to what Arjuna Mahendran had to say.
Mr. Governor, now on the 26th, when you wanted to increase it up to 10 billion,
Yes.
was this communicated to the primary dealers?
This was not. So basically, we advertised 1 billion, and the Public Debt Department told me they would get something in the order of $1.5 billion. And when they informed me at that day that they had got 20 billion worth of orders, I then told them that, the government had indicated to me that they needed a large amount of money. And I told them, why don't we take half of that, 10 billion? And accordingly, the tender committee then went and chose, the lowest bids that they could get to generate that 10 billion.
But the problem right now, Mr. Governor, is the fact that this was not communicated to the primary dealers.
Well, it's in the past it wasn't either. The point is, how can we communicate that to primary dealers? Because we didn't know that we would get 20 billion worth of orders. The moment we opened the bids, we realized that there was much in excess of what we had originally anticipated in the auction.
But every time, Mr. Governor, there has been a treasury bond issue, there has been oversubscription, right?
Yes, but the point is, we don't. You see, my point is the knowledge that I had that the government needed the money was in the back of my mind, and my expectation was that we wouldn't have many bids at these auctions, so we were going to look at other means of raising it.
So, Mr. Governor, there is a problem that persists with regard to the communication.
I agree. I mean, it's because the functioning of the market has not been perfect in the past. Now, in this instance, I think that communication didn't work properly. We should have said we needed to raise 10 billion, but of course, we had advertised it the previous day, and I only got to know of the treasury requirement on the Thursday. So there was miscommunication. I accept that.
So can this be called insider trading, Mr. Governor?
No, this is not insider trading at all, because, it was just a question of us shifting from one system to another.
One organization in question was privy to information that the others did not have.
No, that has to be established. Certainly that information didn't come from me.
Mr. Governor, many primary dealers have told newspapers on the grounds of anonymity that this has caused a confusion and instability in the market. And I think as a governor, you should take responsibility for it.
No, I will take responsibility for the fact that we should have advertised 10 billion, but we didn't have that information in time.
Well, that was our very experienced Director of English News, Shamir Rasuddin, talking to then Governor Arjuna Mahendran. And Mr. Rasuddin was absolutely clear when he reminded the Governor as to what was in essence wrong, that they ought to have informed all the primary dealers that they were in the market for 10 billion, not for 1 billion. And Mr. Mahendran's flat denial all fell apart at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry when two serving Supreme Court judges and a retired former Deputy Auditor General collectively held that Arjuna Mahendran had acted mala fide and in the interest of Perpetual Treasuries Limited, his son-in-law's company, when he passed price-sensitive information so that the others could engage in market manipulation and make unusual profits, so unusual that it raised the antennas of everyone watching. So Mr. Mahendran was held to be, in essence, a liar. I was going to use the words economical with the truth, but that's too nice. We might as well say it the way it was. Basically, he lied, and he lied for God knows why. But Mr. Rusiripala Tennakoon, why did this happen?
Yeah, Faraz, this is a long story, and we are reviewing an event that has taken place 4 years ago, and events that followed after the incident. In hindsight today, unlike what we said, how we were involved at the beginning, today we are seeing many things that have really happened, and in hindsight we are wiser. We know that we have established several things that we were foreseeing at that time happening in the real sense. So I would rather look at this whole thing now in this review what we are doing today. I think if we focus on what happened in the preceding period prior to the issue of these bonds, on the day that this event took place, and then what transpired immediately after, I think we can face out beautifully for the information of the listeners, our viewers, what really transpired. So it's like this,
Yes.
basically your observations and inferences.
Yes.
Now we have so many observations that have been real observations that we have made.
Indeed.
And we can make our inferences without any fear, because in hindsight, we have solid proof as it is, as it stands, on what has happened. So that is solid proof of what we have been saying.
So this basically, to put it quite clearly, and in the words of a listener, a viewer, who sent us an SMS. By the way, do, as usual, send us your SMSs. We'll take them. 0772 300 305. SMSs only, please. And it says here, once upon a time, there was a Mr. Clean. Wonder how many other things he has done as bad as this scam.
Yeah.
Maybe he should be called Mr. Scam. Now then, do you think that this whole business, this fraud, where the EPF in essence was the scapegoat and the one organization that lost the most, do you think that this was all premeditated?
Most certainly for us, it is not a question of our imagining something happened or something like that.
Yeah.
Looking at the events that have taken place and the preparatory actions that they have taken immediately prior to the issue of the bonds, lead us to only one thing, that position that this was a premeditated thing, pre-planned, in every step carefully done. That is the only conclusion we can come to. No one can blame us for coming to that conclusion looking at the events. Take for example, who is this Mahendran? From where was he brought? Who brought him? Question number one.
Yeah.
Question number two, where was the central bank as in the portfolio of the ministries in this country over several decades and years from the time the central bank was established? It was under the Ministry of Finance, under the portfolio. Who took it out for the first time in the history? Who took it out of the central finance ministry? This Prime Minister. He took it under himself when he was not the Minister of Finance.
And contrary to the monetary law.
Yeah.
Provisions of the monetary law.
As rightly said by Mr. Gunasekara, the monetary board specifically refers to all references to the central bank in the context of the Ministry of Finance.
Indeed.
That's in the Act.
Yeah.
And as Mr. Vasant Samarasinghe pointed out some time ago, the central bank has always been listed under the Ministry of Finance.
Yeah.
And all references in the statutes and so on refers to the Minister of Finance. And to change the Act, you don't change the Act just because a Prime Minister says so. You change it when you go to Parliament and go that route. Parliament must vote and the President must
No, funny thing
proclaim
is
and so
that
on.
Minister of Finance, Ravi Karnanayake, continued to sign all the documents when the subject minister is Prime Minister.
Prime Minister. Not only that for us, you see.
So that is also that the monetary law has not given any permission to the Prime Minister to.
Indeed.
The funny thing is, after incident is happening, Prime Minister hand over it again to Finance Ministry.
After
everything is happening.
That is after even the commission
report. Not
after
because
even the
of
commission report.
If he look into under his power, the central bank must be under his power. Then he should have a continue, because until he is in the Prime Minister of the country.
Indeed.
After incident happened, he hand over it to the Finance Ministry. Now, I want to mention, Mr. Dev also mentioned about the incident on 28th of February 2015. We also had a meeting with some primary dealers in our party office. They gave so many details. Mr. Prime Minister stand up in the Parliament to answer the question by raise our party leader. When that time he exposed, there is no any evidence to there is happening some fraud or something. That's why I am going to appoint a committee. 16th of March 2015. And 2-3 times he tried to guard Mahendran in the parliament. One time he said there is no, I can believe him. When he go to the out of the country, Prime Minister said he is going to wedding.
Yeah.
No, right now he can say, because as Rusiri said, he is the responsible person. And Prime Minister have a big responsibilities to bring Arjuna Mahendran back. Why he is not acting like that? He is a Prime Minister. He can have a diplomatic ties with Singapore and Singapore government. They have a good discussion. Then we can say he is the person who have make a big losses to the country. Then still it's not happening. My point of view is the good evidence we have. The Commission of Presidential Commissioner gave a comprehensive report, and there's so many details and so many evidence. But still, Mr. Dew mentioned today also in the newspaper, I read it, still Parliament not debated. Why is that? The report was released 2017 December. Right now, 14 months we have explained. Still Parliament didn't debate it. Why is that? The rule of the country, we all the people accepting who will be the prosecuted, a real prosecutor for the bond scam. But nothing happened. I can't believe within next 10 months there may be some reasonable answer to the country on, with these incidents.
Mr. Dew a viewer says here, for me the bond scam can be described in one word, and it is spelled RANIL. Ranil. Is the UNP morally dead? You're the politician.
Yeah, Faraz, this is not the first time. When Ranil Wickremesinghe became Prime Minister for the third time, I think 2006, 2002.
Yeah.
Right. The biggest fraud, the VAT fraud took place under his administration. And it took only in 2006, really, that was unearthed. And by that time, the big horror has gone.
Yeah.
Still at large.
Still at large.
And some minor officials,
they
are languishing.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Rusripala.
So that is the biggest, that VAT fraud is a big, this is the second time. There is a scam.
When the Prime
Central Bank Minister, there is a scam.
Yeah.
There is a VAT fraud.
Let's, I just want to go back on this thing, and then we'll ask you a question surrounding that. Can we play those, that clip here? Because there were, bond, and then there's all these references. Let's play it. Control room's got it lined up now.
Bond market කී දෙනෙක් දන්නවද බොන්ඩ් මාකට් එක ගැන? රුක් බොන්ඩ් එක ගැන දන්නවද? ජේම්ස් බොන්ඩ් එක ගැන දන්නවද? දැන් අපි සුදුසු නෑ. අපි මේ ප්‍රයිමරි ඩීලර්ස් මෙතෙන්ට දාන්න ඕනේ. අපි ඔබතුමන්ලට ඕන නම් විශේෂඥ දැනුම අපි ලබලා දෙන්න. ඔබතුමන්ලා අරගන්න අපි උදව් කරන්නම් ඒකට. මට ඕන පාර්ලිමේන්තු බජට් ඔෆිස් එකකුත් පටන් ගන්න. ඉතින් මේ මොකක්වත් වහන්න උවමනා නැහැ. මේක කියනවා විශේෂඥයෝනේ අන්තිමට අපිනේ. ඔබතුමා මේ කොමිටියේ සභාපති වෙන්න මොකක්ද උනේ විශේෂ දැනුම අද හොඳ වැඩ කටයුතු කරන්න කෝප් එකේ මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ අපි දන්නවා මොනවද මේ වැඩ කරන්න කියලා අපි මේවා කළා තියෙන නිසා අපිට දැනුමක් තියෙනවා.
Well, Mr. Rusripala, if I ever have heard a liar at play, come on. Do these people think that we are deaf, that we are blind, that we are stupid?
Yeah.
What do they think?
He was ridiculing the MPs.
What
do you know all about this?
What did he know? He knew nothing.
Nothing.
He knew nothing.
He is a lawyer. He is not an economist. He is not an accountant.
Well, he's a bit of a court jester. He's a bit of a court jester. Let's play the next clip.
Yeah.
Let's listen to the next one. And then, we'll...
I insisted on a public auction because private placements have led to corruption and lack of transparency. I insisted on a public auction because private placements have led to corruption and lack of transparency.
I insisted.
They are the culprit. He wanted that.
He wanted
He admits.
He admits it.
He insisted.
Mr. Rusripala, is that enough proof?
What more than that?
Yeah.
I insisted.
On the horse's mouth.
I disagree with you when you say
Yeah.
that what does he know? I totally disagree with you. He knew everything, the Prime Minister. From the beginning to the end, to date, he knows what has happened. He knew what was going to happen. He knew what exactly happened. He knew how to cover it up. So if you say he did not know, he only made it known to the country that the rest in the parliament did not know. That is what he did. And that exactly establishes the point. They did it in the midst of a total ignorance that was prevailing in the country about this entire episode, how these transactions take place. He knew about the lack of knowledge of the people, lack of knowledge of the legislators, of how the happenings are going to be. So he made best use of it. So if you say that he did not know, I don't agree with you. If he did not know,
He knew everything.
he knew everything. On the 20th, he appointed Arjuna Mahendran as the governor of the central bank. And that he did with lot of opposition when it was raised. In the first place, Arjuna Mahendran was not a citizen of this country. In the second place, Arjuna Mahendran was not a man who played the role in the bringing of the new government into place.
Yes.
He was nowhere, but he was brought in for the only reason, only eligibility, only qualification that Ranil Wickremesinghe wanted him in the place. Then you distributed just before the 20th of January 2015, when he was appointed. On the 16th of January, do you know that his son-in-law,
That's 4 days earlier.
Yeah.
who was the director and the main person operating the primary dealers positioned in the PTL, resigned his director's post.
4 days before
4
the
days.
So
Again.
his son-in-law knew that his father-in-law was to be appointed as the governor of the central bank. The country did not know.
No, he answered that. I cross-checked him in
Yeah.
Parliament. The COP.
Yes.
He said, that's why I resigned.
So now, you see, they were discussing, and please let me recap some of these incidents. These are very relevant to our discussion because we are not throwing stones in the dark. We are doing something to which we are responsible.
And we have always done that.
Every word we say, we hold ourselves some responsibility. On the 20th, he is appointed. On the 23rd, the first time the monetary board meets under his chairmanship, what did they decide? On the 23rd of February, when the monetary board decides, this man, he was talking about the facilitation of the primary dealers by the central bank. How money was to be given to them for them to find short-term financing to bid. He was worried about that. You think that this was done accidentally? Part of the plan. Then he took another decision. The interest rates, the SDR rates, the country's interest rate should not be changed until the next month. He wanted to change it at that meeting, but the monetary board refused. They said, don't do it in this hurry. Let us do it at the next meeting. So the decision was not to change it. He took another decision. For the first time after a long period, he said, issue the bonds for 30 years. Issue the bonds for 30 years. Then, on the 23rd, when he met at that monetary board, when the monetary board was meeting, he knew that the treasury has sent a letter on the 20th addressed to the central bank PDD asking for 13.5 billion. He knew that. And he also knew that the DDMC had taken a decision that they will only go for 1 billion and the rest they will go for direct placement.
You need to tell us what the DDMC
Direct placement. DDMC is the Department of Public Debts.
Department.
The debt management.
Right.
That is the department. That is the department that decides the modus of calling for tenders and the amounts. Then on the 24th, a fine thing happens. The Prime Minister calls the governor and they have a private discussion. It's all reported in the commission. I am taking the full responsibility. They say, he instructs, change this system.
So the Prime Minister insists, he instructs.
He instructs.
Prime Minister insists, he instructs.
Yeah, and Prime Minister also said, I instructed.
Right.
I instructed. And the governor said, he instructed me. The words. Insisting and instructing, virtually it boils down to the same. He said, do away with this private placement. He
used the word private.
He brought it in.
That word, I think that he has coined by himself.
By himself, because it's actually a direct.
It was not there in the vocabulary for us.
Yeah.
It was not there in the central bank vocabulary.
So you're absolutely right, Mr. Rusripala. He did know everything about the bond.
He knew.
Definitely.
He knew. And the funniest thing, let me two more points.
Yes.
Just two more, very relevant. On the 24th, he gives this instruction. On the 26th, 2 cabinet ministers with the chairman of the UNP, Malik Samaravikrama, along with the governor, holds a private meeting in the central bank premises. What do they decide?
Unprecedented. Really.
Totally. What do they
Malik
decide?
Samaravikrama, please mention that at that time he was
only
the chairman of the United National Party.
And not only the chairman,
supposed to be an advisor. He was the chairman.
No, he is a chairman.
Yeah.
Kabir Hasim.
Yeah.
And Ravi Karunanayake.
Yeah, those are 2 ministers, no?
Two ministers.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
We said the ministers.
Yeah.
This Malik Samaravikrama's presence was the
Chairman
one.
has nothing to do with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Then Malik Samaravikrama came in his political capacity there to determine what? It was established and it was accepted by the Prime Minister in his evidence. I'm reiterating. It was accepted by the Prime Minister in his evidence that this meeting decided they wanted 15 billion in addition to what the Treasury asked for the month of March as the financial requirement to pay the road constructing contractors. In other words, they paved the way, a ploy to raise bigger money at the coming bond issue. That is what the governor said on the floor on the day of the auction. He walked into the floor and he said, the government wants more money, go for this.
And you have to remember that Mr. Mahendran deliberately lied about that because he said initially that he had never been to the auction room.
Whereas the most beautiful thing is, on the 27th morning, the day of the auction, at 8 o'clock, he walks into the market operations meeting of the central bank.
Yeah.
Uninvited. Market operations meeting is held to determine the day-to-day operations of the financial, fiscal, monetary operations of the country. It is there that they decide whether the interest should go up or interest should come down, and they make the recommendation. He insisted at that meeting that the interest rate, the SDR rate, should be changed, increased forthwith. That afternoon, in 2 hours, a bond auction is going to take place. And he walks into this meeting that day morning, and he wants the interest rates to go up. He knew who is going to bid at that bond meeting. He knew the effect of increasing the effect for that people who will tender higher offers. He did it. And then when the officials of the central bank opposed, saying, sir, how can we do this? The monetary board decided on the 23rd that we can't change it. No, you change it. I'll get covering approval. That's what exactly Mahendran said at that meeting. And on the 27th, he walked twice into the auction floor. 10:48.
And yet when he was on state television, I remember that interview clearly because it was all made up. He said that it's all nonsense, that he had never been there.
This is all established in evidence. This is all established in evidence.
On that note,
While Faraz, then...
let me come back to you, Mr. Vasanthi, because it's time apparently to go for a break. After this very short break, we'll be back here. I know you're sending all these messages. you're enjoying the show, and you're enjoying getting to know what actually went on. That's serious business. Do join us after this break. This is, after all, Newsline.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Public interest has always been overwhelming, especially when the public's monies are at stake. The bond scam was no different. It attracted and it continues to hold the public's imagination. Because, after all, it was the greatest scam ever. We're here on Newsline discussing that. Now then, several messages. Thank you so much for all your messages. One of them has said, please have this program done in Sinhala, very important. Please have this, another one says, please rebroadcast this in the night so that we can watch it at another time. Thank you, and thank you for all that. But I think the question is, after 4 years,
I want to add something with what the Rusiri said.
Yes.
This is the organized crime, organized fraud. Why? As he mentioned, 2 cabinet ministers. Who are them? With the UNP leader, Malik Samaravikrama, General Secretary Kabir Hasim, Deputy Leader and Finance Minister, Ravi Karunanayaka. 3 of them, why are enter the central bank premises?
Vasantha
What
says
purpose?
it's a party meeting.
Just like a party meeting, no. Other thing, Rusiri.
Maybe it was a party treasury meeting.
That's the thing. That's the thing,
fundraising
Faraz.
committee.
It is the fundraising committee
Of the party.
That's why.
You come to the point.
The other thing is, after this incident,
Yeah.
so many UNPS get some money from the Aloysius. We raise about that and we disclose to the country.
Yeah.
And DCSL company accounts, they have distributed 1.2 billion rupees with the 166 checks.
Yes.
Other things.
Where's the
All
list?
together.
Where is the list?
Where is the list?
That's the
list
list.
hasn't come out yet.
List hasn't come out because of why? The president.
I want
we
to-
urge today also for us. We are
Judge-
going to meet the president to ask, please release the country the report.
Today you're going to
Today.
ask
Full report.
Please ask the president
Yeah.
to also launch the next Bond 2.
The-
Bond 2.
we wrote-
Now then,
Yeah.
gentlemen, lest you think that I don't know my manners and that I have forgotten, I haven't. And I want to tell you all to please remember that this entire episode hinged on one My Fair Lady, Mrs. Deepa Seneviratne, who was told by the governor of the central bank to take 20 billion. She refused. And most importantly, for all of us in this country, Mrs. Deepa Seneviratne made a note. She wrote it down. The governor said this, I said this, and eventually the governor said, take 10 billion. Thank you.
And
madam.
she testified that
And she
in my
testified
presence.
in the presence of you, Mrs. Seneviratne, God bless you and thank you for what you did for our country.
For us, it was a rare historic occasion to establish how the central bank officials who were determined to raise the money, do their job in raising the money on behalf of the government at the cheapest rate possible according to the prevailing market conditions, how they reacted and stood up to their position. It goes into history, as you rightly said. Azim, and the superintendent, newly appointed superintendent, only 1 month she has been there.
Yeah.
1 month, Mrs. Seneviratne. She had the guts. Firstly,
She had the courage, Mr.
She had the-
Durrani, to be different.
she was different. She first resisted giving substantial reasons why they should not increase the amount that they first recommended. 2.6 billion they recommended. For that afternoon, the tender board meeting, they recommended the paper for 2.6 billion. Why? Because that was the cut-off rate that was most feasible to be accepted to the government at the cheapest.
Rusiri,
As the cheapest. What
Gentlemen,
happened?
we are about 60 seconds away
Yeah,
from finishing.
because of that's why I want to raise here. There's so many evidence, with the proof evidence, 2 COP report and Presidential Commission report. There is enough proof documents. Why the still not happening something even?
Nothing is happening.
Nothing is happening.
Mr. Rusiripala,
That's why today going to ask Mr. President, please launch the all report, full report,
Please
without
do.
any page.
please ask him to do COP,
yeah,
to do bond 2.
and also make a second bond commission.
I'm so
to
sorry, but
find out.
we had so many messages. Thank you ever so much. You can follow this on Facebook, on all sorts of social media. You can go to newsfirst.lk. But Rusiripala Tennakoon, Mr. Vasantha Samarasinghe, and my dear guru, Mr. Deogunasekaran,
Our senior in the game.
our senior, thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
You, at your age, you've come on so many programs at all sorts of times, and we are deeply grateful. The nation actually is deeply grateful to you. Thank you very much indeed. And that's the way it was on Newsline. We'll leave you with this little clip because, to me, it was one of the highlights, the most ironic things ever. Take care, do watch Newsline all the time because we are here to report for you. And finally, before I end all this, I just want to say once again, thank you very much to the chairman of our group, because without the freedom that has been granted to us and without that independence, we would never have been able to bring to you, the public, the details of the greatest scam ever. Thank you for watching Newsline. Take care. Have a great day. Don't tune off because it's not quite finished. We've got a couple of messages for you. God bless you.
Today is the 4th anniversary of the infamous bond auction of 27th February 2015. 4 years ago, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, under Governor Arjuna Mahendran, advertised a bond of 1 billion rupees for 30 years. When the auction closed, the governor decided to take up 20 times that value, 20 billion rupees. In the face of opposition from central bank personnel, he decided to reduce that to 10 billion rupees. Perpetual Treasuries Limited ended up with the lion's share of the 10 billion, as part of it was achieved at an extraordinary high rate of 12.05%, with the rate prevailing before this auction was in the region of 9.85%. Significantly, the Bank of Ceylon, also a primary dealer, made a bid for and on behalf of PTL. As public concern grew and the media interest reached new levels, Prime Minister Wickramasinghe decided the matter was worthy of his interest and intervention. On the 17th of March 2015, made a speech in Parliament. The Prime Minister was unambiguous, and he said that he insisted on change of system and blamed it on corruption in the previous administration. He appointed his own committee, called the Pitipana Committee, to investigate the matter, and the former governor was cleared of any wrongdoing. Then Speaker Chamal Rajapaksa invited D.E.W. Gunasekara to be chairman of COPE in order to investigate the bond auction of 27th February 2015. On the day the D.E.W. Gunasekara report was to be tabled in Parliament, fortuitously for those involved in the bond scam, Parliament was dissolved on the 26th of June 2015. With that, the inquiries into the bond scandal came to a halt. A notable feature of the COPE report was that Arjuna Mahendran, under oath, said he had only followed the Prime Minister's instructions. 3 months after parliamentary elections on the 17th of August 2015, Prime Minister Wickramasinghe appointed Sunil Hanunetti as chairman of COPE to restart investigations on 26th of November 2015. On the 29th and 30th of March 2016, 2 more controversial bond auctions were held. In October 2016, the UNP members of COPE signed off the report but added footnotes challenging some of the conclusions of the COPE report. On the 27th of January 2017, responding to growing parliamentary and public sentiment, President Sirisena appointed a Presidential Commission of Inquiry to look into the issuance of bonds from February 2015 through to 31st March 2016. Over the 11 months that followed, the nation looked on in disbelief as the scale of the bond scam was revealed during the inquiry. On the 30th December 2017, the Commission of Inquiry delivered the report to the President, who sent it to the Attorney General's Department. Findings on key people in the report were: number 1, Arjuna Mahenduan acted mala fide and had shared sensitive information that had benefited Perpetual Treasuries. Number 2, his son-in-law Arjun Aloysius, part owner of Perpetual Treasuries, was alleged to have used his relationship with Mahenduan to obtain inside information and make massive profits at the expense of government institutions. Number 3, Ravi Karunanayake faces allegations of bribery. He was moved out of the post of Finance Minister and was given the Foreign Affairs Ministry. He then resigned in August 2017 following the revelations during the inquiry. Number 4, the Prime Minister Ranil Wickramasinghe was found to have been ill-advised by Mahenduan and Deputy Governor Samarasiri. 2 key recommendations were made by the Commission of Inquiry. Number 1, a forensic audit of all the trades conducted by Perpetual Treasuries and other primary dealers involved in the bond auctions be carried out. Number 2, to institute legal action against all those accountable. To this effect, a notice has been issued on Arjuna Mahenduan. However, efforts to locate Mahenduan in Singapore have failed. He continues to be out of the reach of Sri Lanka's law enforcement. Arjun Aloysius and Kasun Palisena were detained at the Colombo Remand Prison for almost 10 long months and were released this year. Ranil Wickramasinghe remains the Prime Minister of the country despite a constitutional crisis of 51 days. 4 years after the biggest financial crime in Sri Lanka's history, and no one in government has been held accountable or successfully prosecuted.
News First Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.